Hey guys, in this video we're going to be setting up Pi-hole, which is basically a DNS that you can route your router to, and it'll protect you from unwanted content, malicious websites, and just an all-around ad blocker for your network. We're going to be using a Raspberry Pi, which is what the Pi-hole is meant for. You can set it up on other devices, but since I have a Raspberry Pi that I can just mess with, I'm going to be doing that. So I'm going to be following the official Pi-hole documentation for this. So the first command you're going to want to run is, let me actually clear this. I'm actually SSH'd into my Pi right now. I believe you have to use sudo for this. I'm not sure. You know, most websites don't tell you if you have to use sudo. I'm not sure if they're assuming you're in root, but we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to let that run. So yeah, this should pop up. This installer will transform your device into a network-wide ad blocker. Pi-hole is free but powered by donations. The Pi-hole is a server, so it needs a static IP address to function properly. If you've not already done so, you must ensure that this device has a static IP. Depending on your operating system, there are many ways to achieve this. You can set your static IP through your router settings. So, continue. We're actually going to be using wireless LAN. The router I have sucks and only has 3 Ethernet ports for some fucking reason. So, I'm going to have to update that later, but we're just going to go ahead with the wireless LAN. For the DNS provider, we're going to be using Cloudflare. Cloudflare might be NSA, but fuck it, better than Google. Pi-hole relies on third-party listener to block ads. Yes, we're going to include that. You want to install the admin web interface. Yes. A web server is required for the admin web interface. So you want to install Lite PD and require PHP modules. Yes. Would you like enable query logging? Yes. Privacy mode, show everything. We're just going to show everything. Okay. And we're going to let that continue running. So here we are. Configure devices to use the Pi-hole as their DNS server using IPv4, IPv6. Your admin web page login password is such and such. Let's go ahead and get into that web interface. So, as you saw, I went to the IP for my Raspberry Pi /admin, PHP based. So password, let's go ahead and type that in. And here we are. This is the main page for the Pi-hole. So yeah, they have the dashboard, shows you the total queries, the queries blocked, the percentage blocked, domains on ad lists. So as you saw before, it asked me if I want to install or use a third-party list. And so we're going to do that. No harm in it. Yeah, it's not connected right now. I'm actually about to connect it, and I'll show you some traffic that goes through and some blocking that it does. So I'm recording this part of the video much later, much later. As you can see by my Pi-hole setup, it's currently working. I have 18 clients on my home network, and you can see the queries blocked, the percentage blocked, domains on the ad list. So the thing is with Pi-hole is that you can set it up as a DNS. Like if we go to settings, we go to DNS. I'm currently using Unbound, just a recursive DNS system. But you can use Cloudflare. You could set all this if you want to use Cloudflare. I just decided to keep it all, as basic as I can. Even though you set up the actual DNS and you point, let's say, so I'm currently using a Linksys smart Wi-Fi router. So we go to connectivity, we go to local network. You can see that currently I have the DHCP server on Linksys disabled, and that is because I'm running the DHCP through the Pi-hole. So you can see right here, this was the internal IP for my Pi-hole. But even after setting the static DNS for the actual router, it still did not make all of the clients on the network go through that DNS or use the Pi-hole as a DNS. It would still route to the actual router, the 192.168.1.1, as you can see here. And what it would do is it would actually, since all the requests would come through the router, it partially wasn't working, and you would see, like on the dashboard here, you would see 2 active clients. So it would be the Pi-hole, and then it would be the router. and everybody's requests would be coming through the router. So eventually there's settings in here, like let me see, tools, where is that? I think it is in settings. I think it's rate limiting. Yeah, rate limiting right here. So block clients from making more than 1,000 queries within 60 seconds. So basically you would have to make this a very large number, and even then, just because all the traffic would be routed through the router's IP, since every single device is connecting to it with the DHCP server on the router still active. So you would basically have to make this a very large number, and all the traffic would be coming through the router, which is not ideal. So, damn, what was that number? I put 1,000 right, which is not ideal. So you would have to go into your router settings and disable your DHCP server. I say before you disable it, make sure you have the Pi-hole up and running. Make sure it has a static IP on the system, because once your Pi-hole becomes the main DHCP for your network, it is not serving its own IP address. It's not being given an IP address. It can easily get, like, you see the DHCP lease times. I've ran into issues over these past couple of days where it would drop its own IP. So you have to, and you wouldn't be able to connect to it SSH. And so you have to give it a static IP in the network manager settings, which I'll also show you how to do. Another note, right here, so the router is 1.1. So I gave the Pi-hole 1.2, and I allowed it to give out IP addresses 1.3 to 1.254. Just so that 1.2 will never be taken, so I can give it that static IP address. Initially, I put it here in the static DHCP releases configuration, but that did not work, which it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. In order to have, so after doing that DHCP settings and making the Pi-hole the main DHCP, giving out IP addresses, in the dashboard you should see more than 2 active clients. And I've actually went ahead and added a couple ad lists myself, some malicious sites and some more adless. So if you want, you can look at these. I'm not going to put these in the description because you can easily look these up. I just look up malicious site ad list to add to Pi-hole, and it'll give you links, and you can do that. And whenever you do add those, you're going to have to run Pi-hole -Pi-hole-G in order to update and for it to download the list. So yeah, as far as the DHCP, the DNS, that works properly on the Pi-hole now. So all the traffic with each device without having to set it manually routes to the Pi-hole. And with that, if you guys want a tutorial for the Unbound, it's not too complicated, but lately niggas been hating on my videos for being too long. So if you want a tutorial on that, I can re-upload this video and add that, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. So now we're going to move on to the actual adding the static IP address to the Pi-hole, just so you don't run into any problems, because that's annoying. If you do happen to lose, if the static IP doesn't work and you happen to lose the IP to the Pi-hole and everything just stops working, then you would have to go back into your router, enable the DHCP, disable it in Pi-hole, and then disable it again in the router and enable it in Pi-hole just to give it a new IP address. And then you can run something like Nmap, or you can just check the Linksys or whatever router you have, the device list, and look for the IP. And one more thing, as you can see, I have a different, from the previous part of this video, it's a different design on the Pi-hole page. You can actually go to settings, web interface, and I use the midnight theme. The deep midnight theme is a little bit too dark. I don't know, it's not too dark, but it just doesn't look as good as the midnight theme, so I prefer that. It looks nice. Okay, so first things first, in order to set the static IP, if you go online, you'll see a lot of forums saying to edit the DHCP CPD or whatever comp file, but I believe that was prior to Debian 12 Bullseye, or I think, my bad, Debian 12 Bookworm. And so it's a little bit different with Bookworm. You're gonna have to use the network manager. So you run this command, network manager CLI, and as you can see, at the beginning of the video, I used WLAN, but I then I changed my router out, and I was able to do the whole DHCP settings because the Spectrum router doesn't enable you to do that. They're very strict on DHCP as far as disabling it using your own and stuff like that. And so I went and bought a router, and I was able to do that. So I was able to switch over to Ethernet just because I had an extra port I could use. So as you can see here, the name is wired connection 1. And what you're gonna have to do in order to set your own static IP is, let me see, I already put these commands in recently. You're gonna have to do sudo nmcli connection modify, and then the name of it. So mine will be wired connection 1, IPv4.addresses, and then put the address, the static IP address you want for it, and then whatever subnet alongside it. In my case, it's 24. And then after doing that, you're going to want to do connection modify and set the gateway, which is going to be the router, so 1.1 in my case. Then after that, you're going to want to set the DNS, which it's its own DNS, for in my case the Unbound. So it would just be the local host. And then after doing that, you're going to want to do a sudo reboot, especially if you're SSH'd into the system, because I believe the other command that it showed me whenever I was reading about it was to set the interface down and then back up or something like that. But that's not going to work if you're SSH, because then you're going to lose connection. So your best bet is just a sudo reboot if you're SSH. If you're actually on the system and you have it displayed and connected and all that, then you can go ahead and take it down, take it back up. But just to have it fresh, I would just recommend a sudo reboot. This part of the video isn't necessary, but I'm just going to explain a little bit about Unbound. So Unbound is a recursive DNS server. Basically how it works is, so with things like Cloudflare or the Google DNS, they have these cached servers like www.google.com, and they're able to give you that IP address almost instantly. And I believe Cloudflare is the fastest, if not one of the fastest. And they're able to do that because they have those caches and they're able to give you the IP. How Unbound works, which is ran locally, is it's a recursive DNS server instead. So what it does is, actually, let me see if I can pull up a diagram and I can explain it from there. So I'm going to use this diagram from Geeks for Geeks. This is the best diagram I could find. So basically how it works is your local DNS server contacts the root level DNS server. So let's say .com, .net, .org. And then it asks it, oh, do you have, so for example, let's say google.com. You contact the root that you know for .com, the authoritative server for that. And you ask it, oh, do you know Google? So google.com attached to the .com. And then it responds back and says, yes, we do. So then you contact google.com. And then from there, it just builds up from there. So .com, then google.com, then www.google.com. And it goes through each of those parts of the domain. So things like this Pi-hole documentation website. So it would ask .net, oh, do you have pi-hole? And then it would respond, yes. And then you would ask, oh, do you have docs? You would ask pi-hole.net, oh, do you have docs.pi-hole.net? And then it would respond, and then it would give you that. And so it basically, one security feature of the recursive DNS server is that since it contacts each one, the last one is not necessarily knowing where you're actually ending up. And so that provides for a little bit of privacy. And it allows for, if let's say if Cloudflare, since it's such a big thing, it's a big project, it's bound to get attacked by people trying to poison the DNS cache and point this to, like, let's say a phishing page or something like that. And so with recursive DNS, since you're contacting each separate server, it's a little bit more difficult. And especially if you use DNSSEC, it allows for like verifying signatures and stuff like that. and it allows for a little bit more security overall with just using recursion instead of the provided Cloudflare or Google DNS. But I will link this in the description if you would like to set this up, but I don't believe I'm going to incorporate this into the video. I know most people just want to get it up and running, so you can easily just use Cloudflare or Google, whichever you prefer. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there's a video topic you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below, and I'm out.